This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Yeah. So, hope y'all have thawed out over there in vast listener land. Taylor, you thawed out yet?
More or less.
More or less. Okay. Yeah, we have him podcasting from the dungeon because, where are you at, right? By the way, at your house or what?
Yeah, I just don't have my mic with me
Yeah.
right now. So
No, Mike, well, no big deal. Anyway, it's thawing so fast over here. It almost sounds like it's raining because all the ice falling off the trees and the roof and all that. It is pretty. Wake up this morning, bright blue skies. I don't know, it's mid 50 degrees. I'm checking here on the ever accurate web. Oh, it's in the mid 30s. It just seems like it's warmer. But anyway, the point is it's thawing quickly. And uh, here's a unsolicited spot for you. There's a lot of people in the last few days lost money because their hourly workers and their businesses had to be closed because of the weather. So this would be a good weekend to go and make up some of that lost revenue for them. Go out and do a little shopping. Go out to a restaurant. Go to our place. Go to Wild, whatever. Well, not whatever. I support those wholly, of course. But I'm just saying, go out there this weekend and shop local, spend local. Alex Phillips has put this out on the webpage and on our Facebooks. Yeah, it's a good idea because a lot of our friends that work on an hourly basis lost some hours. Now, they may be able to make those up, but uh, we don't know that. And so let's go out there and make sure that they have an opportunity to make up some of that lost revenue. Then it's a good weekend to do it. So here I am going to mess with the ever confusing Facebook shares. How you been doing, Taylor?
I've been waiting busy.
Busy? Well, that's good. Busy is
Yep.
good, isn't it? Yeah, you don't want to be.
That helps.
Oh, you sound a little bit scratchy. Your mic is kind of. It doesn't matter. They're here to listen to me, right? Well, something like that. Anyway, let's talk about our sponsors because that's really what make it all possible. Thank you to Daniel CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. If you've been stuck in the house, it's time to go work out some of that frustration, some of that cabin fever. On 317 Southwest Wilshire, it's behind Stone Soups Cafe, valet cleaners, all that. It's a great place to go work out. It's a strenuous workout, and they have supervision, they have programs, they have trainers, they have the whole 9 yards. It's not just go in there and start lifting. They'll have people there to help you get to where you're trying to get. So CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. It's really a good workout. Also, thank you to Shandy Stogsdill, the Stogsdill Group. If you're looking to move in and around this area, then I wholly endorse Shandy. She and I are doing business together right now on a certain deal, and she knows her stuff, and she's very reassuring. So if you're looking for somebody to help guide you through this Burleson real estate market, definitely look up Shandy Stogsdill. Also, she'll be on the show a week from Monday because, as we've been talking about, she is a candidate for place 4 on the school board, and so we'll be talking about that. Also, an equal time on the 21st, Dallas Owen will be on the show as well, and I'll be asking her some of the questions I've been asking Shandy. So, but Shandy be on in about 8 days, and so you want to check that out. Also, thank you to our place. I know that they've been doing their best to stay open as best they can. So go out and have yourself a chicken fried steak, which is what I always like, but they have a lot of other things. And they have menus for light eaters, for gluten-free, the whole thing. So the whole family can do it. So our place on the highway in Alsbury, thank you, Otto, for all you do. Glad you're back from Chicago. And, I guess this weather makes you kind of homesick, doesn't it? Anyway, also, Wild Cigar and Culture. I'll be there today. I'm visiting a friend there this afternoon. He's been hearing about me advertising about it. It's in my networking group. Said, hey, let's go and check this place out together. And so, I've been there a few times, of course, but he wants to see it. So this afternoon, we'll be there at Wild Cigar and Culture. It's a great place for, a quiet drink, quiet conversation. They got the Super Bowl plans on for a week from Sunday. So you got all that going on. Normally during the season, in the background, they'll have the Rangers on or the Mavericks on or somebody like that. But it's going to be a Super Bowl party. So if you're kind of at loose ends on that day, it's a good place to go and spend time with your friends. Also, thank you to Tiffany Nico over at Local Life Magazine. It's coming out this week. Also, check out localliftx.com for current updates. She also does marketing. So if you're looking for somebody to social media market you, well, I don't know what the phrase is, but help you with your social media campaign. That's what I really mean to say. Then she's the person to talk to. She could do a really, really good job, and she's an extremely hard worker. I mean, I really am impressed with just the dedication she puts into this magazine and all her efforts. So Local Life magazine is coming out this week. Check it out. 30,000 homes getting it. Try to get your copy. Also, thank you to Southern Gem. They're open again today. They've been closed the last 3 days. So if you've been putting off that jewelry purchase, this is a good day to do it. If you need some repairs, you need some cleaning, you need some design, appraisal, and inventories. They got the whole thing. In 11 days is Valentine's Day. And don't think, well, I bought my beloved something on Christmas. It is always the right time to buy your beloved some jewelry. So go by Southern Gem on the top floor of the Windmiller Building. This weather kind of delayed their move to the bottom floor maybe about a week, but they're going to be there very soon, and it's going to be very, very nice. And I'm sure we'll have some sort of special program from there. Southern Gym over at with the Windmiller Building. Also, thank you to Hotworks. On Monday had Michelle Humphrey and a friend of hers, a friend of ours, Lisa Flynn from C3 Cryo, and it's CY3 Cryo. Get the name right, dum dum. And it's over by Summercrest and Allsbury is where the cryo is. Hotworks is on 731 over by Chicken Salad Chick and those medical complexes and the theater. And it was a really fascinating show because they have a lot of similar effects on your workout and on your physique and your body and your health. And so check that show out if you're looking for means to maybe you alleviate some of the issues with your muscles and joints. Or they both had really, really interesting things to talk about. So that show is on Apple and Spotify and on Facebook and YouTube. Also, Melissa, I'm sure her phone will be ringing because she insures auto and home and all sorts of property. And call her at 682-804-0534. If you're not satisfied with your insurance and the way they're dealing with you in this ice mageddon, then call her. And Texas Farm Bureau will check out your policy. And if they could save you money, they'll tell you. If they can't, they'll tell you that too. I saved some money and upgraded my insurance through Ms. Melissa. So 682-804. I'll say it more slowly, 682-804-0534. And we got a couple of events going on. The code drive is still going on another 11 days over at Trinity Chiropractic, which is also on Summercrest and Allsbury. Dr. Dias will check you out. He and his staff will give you free exam, free x-rays, and free adjustment, all for bringing in a new or slightly used coat. And this coat is going to go up with Beautiful Feet Ministries in Fort Worth, and we'll get it directly to those that need it. Supposedly, Punxsutawney Phil says we got 6 more weeks of winter, but we'll see about that. But it's always a good time to donate to this cause because there are people out here that really need our help. And so thank you to Dr. Dias for having this program. So bring your coat over to the Trinity Chiropractic. Do yourself a favor. Do yourself some good. Also, we have the Fridge Fund going on with the Harvest House, January 25th, which has already started, obviously, for another 2 weeks to February 17th. This is pretty important because what happens with this Fridge Fund, they need about 20 grand. I don't know how close they are to that 20 grand yet. I'm going to have Jennifer on probably in late February, and she'll tell us how close or if they exceeded their amounts. But basically what they need is they need about 20 more grand to get it purchased and installed. And the thing about this fridge is it's going to allow people that their clients that use this service to self-select groceries, fresh foods, frozen foods, refrigerated foods, and self-selection. She'll tell you, Jennifer will tell you, and so will Debbie Beeman over at Promises will tell you that's a big thing because it kind of restores some of the dignity to the whole situation. I mean, it's not just like you hand them a bag. It seems like they have some choice in the matter what fits them and their family best. So if you're looking to donate, it's yourharvesthouse.org/donate. Yourharvesthouse.org/donate. Okay. Tuesday, we talked about the curriculum of the AP African American History class, and I got some private responses. I had a couple of people put it on publicly, but most of the people that really have questions about this and want to discuss it fully don't want to deal with the distractions of Facebook sometimes or whatnot. And so they contact me either through text or private message, which is fine. This is all good. And in some parts they agreed, in some parts they disagreed. It was all pleasant, of course. These are friends of mine, so it wasn't like acrimonious in the least. But they had some questions and they had some alternative opinions, and so I'm going to try to address those. But what actually happened was that Wednesday, the day after my show, the New York Times front page article is that the AP board had drastically changed the AP curriculum on African American studies. I'm thinking, see, they must have heard Mr. Allard's neighborhood, got scared, and rapidly changed their mind. I like, or at least like to think so. But what happened was they will say that has been in the process for quite some time. I find that to be a dubious statement because they had this thing processed by December and they were going to roll it out this February in time for Black History Month. And I think the fact that the third largest AP market, the state of Florida, was going to decline that curriculum to be used in their state, not only impact their bottom line, but impact other states' willingness to adopt it as well. Now, let's be very clear. The AP College Board is a nonprofit, but it is a high dollar outfit. Okay, it's a nonprofit. It's not a I don't know all the details about its background, but it's not a for-profit organization. But that would significantly impact their revenues because to put these curricula, that's a proper word, put these curricula together and to put together the tests and the materials and all that is a very, very lengthy and expensive process. And the only way they can recoup any of the cost of that is through the use of their materials and the tests, which most kids pay for. In the state of Florida, I was led to believe, and I think that's true, that all AP tests are paid for. So that was a big chunk of revenue they were looking to miss out on. But anyway, the thing about it is they come out the next day, said that you're going to have a vast revision of the whole process. And my guess is that with the speed of this revision, it couldn't have been something that DeSantis announced on Tuesday that we're not doing it, or Monday we're not doing it, and it came out on Wednesday that it's all been changed. I would think the changes have been signaled in advance, that DeSantis basically told them earlier, his Department of Education told them, we're not taking this. And then they came out the public announcement, and its AP board just probably put it into rapid operations here. What I'm trying to say is, in a very inelegant way, is that the AP board got concerned that not only the AP African American Studies might be at risk, but so are all the social sciences that they offer. They offer a bunch. Now, here's the thing about it. Some people, including some of the people that differed in their opinion than I did, saw this as an attempt of Ron DeSantis to make political hay out of this situation. My response is, really, I never heard of such a thing happening in American politics. I'm stunned. I'm shocked. Shocked there's gambling going on here, as they say. That doesn't bother me. They also said that he was trying to, not my critics, or not my critics, my respondents that did not care for all my ideas. They said he was doing it for racially oriented reasons. There, I will differ with my friends, because I don't think Ron DeSantis is anything remotely like a white supremacist or anything like that. And if people really understood what was in that curriculum, they should have concerns about that. Not only concerns about what they're bringing about, but the total lack of imbalance. Okay, I'm not advocating that AP or any American history be a propaganda course about the greatness of the United States only, and we forget about or overlook some of the less pleasant aspects of our history. American history is a very complex topic. It's a great topic. It's also a tragic topic. Not everybody's history is the same. Nobody that has even a decent understanding of American history is going to tell you that everything that happened in this country was a great and noble thing. And not everybody acted in the best intentions, and not everybody had the equal amount of benefit from the country. That there's no question that the Black American in our history has had a very, very difficult time. And I made this clear, I hope, on Tuesday, that any legitimately taught course is going to bring that up. For the people who send their kids to Burleson schools, I know it is. It's brought up not only because I did it, but because my colleagues did it. I know it's in the Texas state required teaching materials, and I know my colleagues. I know what kind of people they are. Now, my response is, if you have a teacher that is omitting big chunks of history or presenting them in such a way that it's ahistorical, unhistorical, whatever the term you want to use, or is inappropriate, propagandizing, then talk to the school. It's not that the system is geared towards teaching propaganda. It is based on the individual teacher, but I'm just telling you that most teachers I know, both in and without the Burleson system, teach it appropriately. Most of my social studies friends are probably more moderate politically than I am. And I don't consider myself a hardcore right person, despite maybe a couple of people might say. I consider myself pretty mainstream conservative, and I made sure in my classes that we understood the struggles, the difficulties, and the tragedies that occurred within Black history, within the context of American history, and that is the critical factor. Within the context of American history, people get all worked up about Black History Month and say it's inappropriate to have a month set aside strictly for the study of Black history. It doesn't bother me because I knew that I wasn't waiting until February to study Black history. We started from day one. You know, we started from the beginning. We were talking about Black history in October. We're talking about Black history in April because we're talking about it within the context of American history. And so, my point with all of this is that if you're going to have a specific studies course like this, it shouldn't be slanted as obviously badly slanted as this one was until the revisions were made. And B, it's like if you teach history in it, as a segmented kind of topic, you need to make very, very sure that the underlying understanding of history is already there. In other words, before this kind of course is taken, any kind of specific course is taken to focus on this kind of study, you need to have a very decent understanding overall of American history. If we start segmenting our history, so, well, I'm not going to study American history, I'm going to study Black history, Hispanic history, Asian history, you fill in the blank history, without it being in the context of a fuller picture of American history, then you're going to have a very bad understanding of history, and you're going to come about and have a viewpoint like many of these ideologues have, like Nicole Hannah-Jones, who wrote that 1619 Project. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the 1619 Project was something the New York Times put out 3.5 years ago, roughly, saying that American history didn't begin when Columbus landed or the Revolution. It began in 1619 when the first slaves came to the shore, and that the entire history of our country has been based on the preservation of slavery and a racial caste system and a system of systemic racism, and that anything that has been done not for liberty or freedom or any of these other more noble aspects. It's been done strictly to preserve the racial system. I totally reject that idea. It was even some of the liberal historians whom I read and I respect, even though sometimes I disagree with what they write. I respect them greatly. They all said this is rubbish, but now it's on Netflix. Oprah put it on Netflix as a justification of what's going on, and it's also the basis of curriculum in certain northeastern schools. The 1619 Project is rubbish. It is a biased, slanted view of American history that would say that nothing we've ever done has been done for noble reasons. Nothing we've ever done has been done for democracy or liberty or freedom or expression of thought, or you fill in the blank. It's all been done just to keep the white racial system intact. Now, this is the kind of thing that this African American course teaches, among other things. And the African American course had zero balance in terms of its presentation. There is no question that the curriculum, which is in the hands of the Florida Department of Education and has been leaked out to several Florida media outlets, there's no question that this was designed to produce certain ideological conclusions. It wasn't a discovery or an inquiry of free thought. It was designed to create an attitude and a system of thought along certain far leftist lines. And I don't use far leftist very often, but if you looked at the curriculum and seen the excerpts I have, there's no question that was designed to create a a mindset that even a lot of black liberal politicians and theorists and writers don't endorse. But here's a few of the examples, okay? First of all, they had a whole section on the glorification of violence written. It was a essay written about 60 years ago by a black activist named Frantz Fanon. And basically, it became the basis of many of the Black Power and Black Panther movements. That violence is necessary and it's a great thing. And it wasn't like, okay, let's read this and evaluate it. It was, this is the way the truth is. There was no counterbalancing it. You didn't see Dr. King in his counterbalancing argument, for example, who preached nonviolence. Okay, if you're going to look at Frantz Fanon's articles on the use of violence, why don't you counterbalance it with Martin Luther King's nonviolent responses? But that wasn't offered. Okay, so that's an example of the lack of balance. I don't think it's a good idea to glorify violence in any case. But if you insist on having that as an expression of black political thought, have the opposite also be presented. But it was not. Also, it had a lot of criticism about foreign policy towards black nations like Haiti, no balancing counteract about how, basically how we've exploited Haiti all this time and things of that nature, as opposed to the fact that our involvement there has also produced some great benefits there. It's a complex history, but you don't get complex. You get one-sided. Same thing about the issue of reparations, which California, apparently San Francisco, is going to adopt. That's craziness, but that's San Francisco. But reparations is a highly controversial topic. No balance there. It's you are owed this. And no other article talks about the economic or political impact of that. Same thing about prison reform and the abolition of prisons and the issues of police brutality. Nothing about the crime rates and the heavily minority parts of most communities. It's on and on and on like that, where basically here is the information and it's going to lead you to a certain thing that the whites are bad and then the prisons need to be gone. And also, you're owed money. It's a very socialist platform, and they have sections about black socialism. They don't have anything about black conservatism. At least they didn't. Now they do. You can't talk about the black experience in this country without talking about the counterbalances of it. Not just Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, who at the time was considered to be pretty radical, now is considered to be pretty quaint by some of the more activist groups, but also about Colin Powell. What about Condoleezza Rice? They're now included. Thomas Sowell, probably one of the most important writers in the last half century, a black conservative writer, is now included. You can't have any kind of legitimate discussion about these issues I just talked about without reading and understanding Thomas Sowell, because he presents pretty strong counter arguments to a lot of things I just talked about. Same thing with Shelby Williams. Oh, Shelby Steele, I'm sorry. It's Walter Williams I meant. Walter Williams or Shelby Steele or John McWhorter, a current writer who is fairly conservative in his approach. These are now part of the curriculum, but they weren't originally. So, when people got mad at DeSantis saying this is not an unbiased objective inquiry, it is a biased means of trying to produce activists and political persuasions and whatnot. He was right in that. Now, you don't have to care for Ron DeSantis. I'm not here to promote his candidacy because I assume he'll run for president. I'm not here to promote that. We'll see who he runs against. We'll have those conversations maybe in the summer when the field is starting to sort itself out. But I'm not here to promote him, but I am promoting the fact that he was right in his assessment. It was incredibly unbalanced. They talked, as far as like non-conservative approaches, they still have Malcolm X, which is pretty radical. They still have discussions about the Black Panthers and the Black Power movement in the 1960s. And those are legitimate historical topics because they occurred. They're part of the story, but they need to be observed and evaluated on its own, not as a means of indoctrinating right or wrong or who got the rest of the idea. It's interesting is the black politician part, the studies on black politicians didn't exist except in a very small segment. You didn't have discussions about the black representatives and senators during Reconstruction. Brave, brave people. Okay. You didn't have discussions about black representation in Congress and the struggles they had. Instead, you had several articles highly, highly critical of Barack Obama. Let's be clear, despite what you might hear in the news and whatever else, radical and liberal are not the same thing. And many of the black liberals are criticized heavily by the black radicals for being Uncle Toms and not being woke enough, whatever you want to say. And Barack Obama, among others, took tremendous amount of criticism in this curriculum. I was shocked to hear that. I figured they'd have a whole section about his greatness, but no, they did not. So it didn't even reflect legitimate black liberal thought. It was almost all focused on black radical thought. Now, you may hate or like or dislike or admire or have no opinion about Barack Obama. I don't care, but there's no question Barack Obama is an historical figure. And the fact that he has come under criticism in this curriculum for not being radical enough, that should tell you something about where the focus of this material was. Okay. By the way, on a side note, where am I getting my information? New York Times, Wall Street Journal, National Review, Politico. Those are the 4 basic sources I used. So you can, I do believe that's a fairly broad spectrum. Politico is usually pretty much in the middle. Wall Street Journal, National Review are to the right. New York Times is to the left. And so, I think it's fairly. I'm coming from a fairly balanced view. If not, well, you are. Anyway, what did they do with some of these more controversial topics? What they did is they put them in a section of possible post-test units for you to write or discuss. But it wasn't just that they kicked them out of the required testing material. That's great. But they also rephrased them in such a way. Instead of talking about the need for affirmative action in this unit, they talk about the issues and controversies involved with affirmative action, which allows for counter arguments. And there are counter arguments to be made about affirmative action, believe it or not. It also talks about police reform in a more balanced way. Do we need police reform? In Burleson, I'm happy with the policing, but obviously after the events of Memphis and other areas, there's still areas that we very much need to look at. But that's not my point. The point is that now that these are going to be offered as study topics as opposed to testable topics, and as opposed to being driven towards a certain conclusion, rather, it's going to be driven towards open inquiry. Now, if let's say you have a class and they talk about affirmative action, and you have a legitimately unbiased teacher, or maybe even a biased teacher to some degree, but they're willing to try to entertain objective discussions. If the students come to the conclusions that they like and want affirmative action by their own inquiries and studies, that's fine. And that's what education is. Whether I agree with it or not is immaterial. If they come about their conclusions based on studied inquiry and not being directed towards a certain conclusion by either the teacher or the curriculum, then that's fine. If they want to talk about the problems with the reparations, I think reparations is a disastrous idea. But if they have an open inquiry with legitimate opinions, both against and for, being put together, and they're done in an objective, non-biased way, okay, that's education. We don't have to agree with everybody's conclusions. What we have to agree on is that those conclusions were reached based on open inquiry and fair discussion with an appraisal of both sides of the issue, not just one. I have a couple of friends that are very much in favor of reparations. I think that's a crazy idea, and I've told them that. But we've had our discussions, and they said their part, I said my part, and we still were friends. No big deal. It just bothers me when you have a curriculum that said, no, this is the conclusion any decent human being would come to. This is the conclusion anybody who sees the evidence could come to. That's not how education works. That's how indoctrination works. Now, also, another issue, on a kind of a side issue with the AP curriculum, is that it was very, very elevated for a 16 to 18-year-old student. They were talking about things like intersectionality, which if you don't use that term very often. I don't blame you. I don't use it. What intersectionality is basically that the grievances of all the groups have a common connecting core. It's like a united front. So between the blacks and the feminists and the gays and non-whites, I guess, and whatnot, they all have intersectionized, all have grievances. Well, that's a terrible idea of intersectionality, because the issues that face the LGBTQ community may not be the same as the black community, and they shouldn't be conflated as one. But being said, they had a lot of these very, very elevated types of teaching points. Here's an example of one. They talk about the various topics, and then they had the justifications for it and explanations for it and whatnot. Here's one of the topics. This topic examines intersectionality as an analytical framework and its connection to Chicana and Asian American feminist thought. Now, who in the hell at 16 years old would be able to even decipher that sentence? I had to read it twice. I have very, very little understanding of Chicana and Asian American feminist thought. And so to ask them 16-year-old kid to be fluent in that is ridiculous. But that's what that AP curriculum was putting out there. Okay. First of all, most kids have no idea what intersectionality is. Most adults I know don't know what that is, and they're probably better off for it. But the idea that some 16-year-old is going to find that exciting material, I don't understand that at all. But that's the AP board basically, in my opinion, was trying to so impress the universities that they were imposing university level discussions and thoughts on basically teenage kids, who also, by the way, have about 3 or 4 other AP classes among their other classes they have to take. Plus, many of them have jobs, or they play ball, or they're in the band, or they're in the choir, or you fill in the blank. And so we're going to expect some 16-year-old kid to understand and discuss legitimately intersectionality or these other profound issues. Now, I also had some pushback about my statement that if they wanted to study this, they could study it in college. Well, one respondent in particular said, it bothers me that my tax money is going to promote these kind of courses. I agree to a point. I do believe that it's kind of minutely focused type of studies have such narrow economic and hiring prospects that it bothers me when they get these degrees in feminist studies, black studies, gay studies, whatever you want to talk about, and then they're indignant because the job market isn't very broad for them, and somehow it's my responsibility or my fault. That really bugs me. It's like, I didn't ask you to study that. My opinion is that those esoteric type courses may be something for graduate school at best. They shouldn't be offering undergraduate degrees in that, because there's not much of a market for somebody with a feminist studies degree other than activism or teaching. Whereas with a history degree, I know for a fact that with a history degree, you can get jobs in the market, in private business, because they want people that know how to read and write and analyze, and they'll teach you the facts. I remember I've said this before in the show. When I was an analyst with Dun & Bradstreet, I had a business degree, and I sat next to this woman who's about maybe 2 years older than me, who had an English degree. And I said, well, how did they hire you with an English degree? I thought you needed to understand this, that, and the other. And she goes, oh, they taught me that in about 2 or 3 months for what they needed me to do, but they needed somebody that could write and speak and, be fluent and whatnot. And I went around the room and find out that most of us had business degrees, but there was other social science and literary degrees, because the Dun & Bradstreet wanted people that could think and write, not just crunch numbers. And so my point is that if you want to have these kind of studies, I highly recommend them stay at the graduate level at best, because you're not going to get a wide open job market for narrowly tailored liberal arts degrees. But if the University of Texas at Arlington or whatnot want to offer those, and they feel compelled to, I'm not going to raise hell about it. I'm not going to go raise a stink about it. I'm going to go about my business. But I'm telling anybody that would think that the job market's going to be wide open for them, they're deluding themselves, because it won't be. back to my original point, this is not suitable material for high school, not because it's so controversial, even though a lot of it is. It's just they don't have the background to understand what is being taught to them. I have a freshman class at DBU, and it is a jump for them to come from high school to a college freshman course like mine, even if they had a good degree and a good program back home. And so to expect college level teaching, you still have to remember that these are 16-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids with all the academic maturity still ahead of them, with all the time demands made of them, with all the other issues that can distract them, prom and boys and girls, and a week off for standardized testing, and uh, you know you name it, their jobs, their football or basketball or softball team, you fill in the blank. They're frankly, they're just not ready for this, so I really am glad that Ron DeSantis did what he did. He did make it more appropriate for the audience in which this is intended. And it is more balanced. I'm not saying get rid of Malcolm X because he said mean things about white people. Absolutely study Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad. Why? Because, there are legitimate historical figures that had influence of their time, still do. But just balance it with not just opposing views, but also just within the context of history. Now, anyway, that's kind of I hope it explains a few things about this whole topic. For a lot of y'all, you say, well, I don't have any kids in school, or is this a topic that really interests me, or whatever. It really should. And not just because I'm an ex-teacher at the high school level, but this is what we're producing in our schools. And we have a lot of issues in our schools. And we're going to talk about that with Shandy and with Dallas when they come on the shows. And if you have concerns that your teacher or your school is presenting material in a biased, determined way, then check into it. Don't just say I heard. Don't just say I was told. Don't just have a situation where you see an assignment your kid is doing at the table and think that's indicative of everything they're doing. If you really do have concerns that there is extreme bias going on in any classroom, in any district, then parents, you need to do something about it. You don't have to go and accuse anybody of anything. You could check their curriculum. You have the right to see the curriculum. You have the right to know what's being taught in your schools. I don't agree with the idea that you can dictate to the teacher what to teach at all. However, you do have a right to know what's going on. And if you have complaints with it, then you can make those complaints known. I don't agree with the idea that the parent has no role in education, like some of the politicians have said. And I also don't agree with some on the right that say that teachers should be dictated to by the parents. The teacher is the professional in the room. You don't tell the plumber or the doctor how to do their job. The teacher is the professional in the room. That doesn't mean you have no say or rights as to what is being taught in a classroom. Check it out. I think you'll find 99 times out of 100, you'll be satisfied with what's going on. I say this from an experienced point of view. Almost, if you check into it, you will be satisfied most of the time, if not all the time. And in those one or two occasions which you have maybe a objection to a piece of the unit, BISD, I know, provides alternative assessment opportunities. Okay, let me be really clear, because I don't want people on the left or the right, so to speak. I don't want people to misunderstand saying the teacher is the professional in the classroom. The teacher has been trusted by this community, the district, the state of Texas, or whatever state we're talking about, to provide not just an adequate education, but a good one in a fair and balanced way. And that happens almost all the time. There are exceptions. And for that, there are means of addressing those exceptions. I don't think a parent should go into a teacher's classroom and demand something not be taught or something be taught. I do think they should understand what's being taught, and if they have concerns, talk to the teacher. Boy, I can't tell you how many times it drove me crazy when I'd hear about it. It just happened to me a couple of times. It has happened to my peers as well, where you'd have a situation where an administrator said, "Well, somebody's upset with what you're teaching." Well, why didn't they talk to me first? Talk to the teacher. Get their understanding of what's going on, their side and perspective, and I think you'll be more or less satisfied. And if you're not, then there are you have routes to take. I just hope I made myself clear, though. Trust your teachers. Most teachers are not in this profession for 3 summers off. They're not in or for Christmas break, and they're not here to indoctrinate either. Most teachers I know are here to genuinely teach the students because they care about what happens to these kids and to this country. They're here to teach and to be part of the young person's life and to help them along their way. That's what they're there for. Support them in that. And how you could support them? Know what's being taught and know the truth. And it'll solve a lot of problems. Anyway, Monday I have Cabrina Daniels on. Everybody loves Cabrina. I love having Cabrina on because she's so enthusiastic, and I always feel uplifted when she comes on the show. So we have that. On Tuesday, the mayor will be on. Well, I'm sure a very interesting discussion because now that the election season is off and running, and then I'm going to have next step on next step on next Thursday. They were had to be postponed yesterday for various reasons, obviously. We're going to have next step. Megan and Sam will be on next Thursday. Check this out. Check this out. Share with your friends. Go out and spend some money in Burleson this weekend, guys, and we'll see y'all Monday.